Hello and welcome to the podcast Ruminations with Ohiro Oni-Eseleh. This is the podcast where I discuss matters of life, and today I'll be talking about perfectionism, what it really is, how it works, how it shows up in our lives, and practical ways to lessen its grip so that we can create, connect, live more freely and be the best versions of ourselves. If you have ever delayed starting a project, doing something, anything, because it did not feel perfect, and because it did not feel perfect or wasn't going to turn out perfectly, therefore you did not begin it, or you were just exhausted because you exhausted yourself chasing impossible standards and therefore did not complete a task that you were working on or wanted to work on, this episode is for you. Perfectionism sometimes sounds like strength, and we think it's high standards, attention to detail, excellence, and all those grand things for which one deserves praise. But that's not really what it is, because at its core, it's often a fear driven strategy. Perfectionism is very often driven by fear. It is the belief that if we are flawless, we'll be safe. Just as much as we hear that there is nobody that's perfect, we still believe that if we are perfect, that if we do things flawlessly, we'll be safe, we'll be accepted, or will be valued. That belief, therefore, pushes us into rigid rules, harsh self judgment, when we are not able to accomplish then what we wanted to do, or when we look back and did not start it, we judge ourselves and we get into this all or nothing thinking. It's either everything is done and done perfectly or not done at all. So, what is the result often? It is paralysis. You just stop dead and don't end up doing what you're supposed to do. Procrastination, because you keep delaying it until while you're waiting to start a project or complete a project when it can be without a dent. Burnout can occur as we lay there thinking and doing the thing over and over, trying to reach perfection. And then, of course, there's a shrinking sense of joy in our work and our relationships because we're not able to get ourselves to that point where we can actually finish the task and look back and say, yep, we've done well. But how does perfectionism show up? It does so in so many different ways. One, I mentioned procrastination, which is very often disguised as preparation for getting into the task so that we can make it really big, really successful. So we engage in this planning that doesn't end. Over editing. We start doing the work and we get to a point, and because it doesn't look perfect, we want to go back and do it again or correct instead of just doing it. One of the lessons I learned a long time ago was to just get things done. Just keep writing. Just keep writing whether I think it's good or not. And then later, there's always time to go back and do it. So what I tell my doctoral students when they are engaged in when they're working on their capstone or dissertation research projects is just write, just keep writing. My job is to help you then get it in order. But just keep writing. If you don't write, then you have nothing to bring to me to review. My job is to help you make sure that it fits within uh, academic writing and research standards, that it's done well. And I can do that for you and with you after you have done the writing, because without you writing, it doesn't go anywhere. And so a job that is done is one that is done well. A job that is not done at all really has no standard for evaluation. So over editing your work, spending disproportionate amounts of time polishing and getting into small details really doesn't work. And that's one way that it shows up. Perfectionism, avoidance of risk. What is life without risk? But perfectionists very often don't want to take risks. And so, because you fear that taking a risk might expose your imperfections, then there's people pleasing and taking on too much. You're people pleasing, you are over responsible when all you just need to do is be responsible. Trying to control outcomes to prevent criticism, and difficulty celebrating wins. You have done a great job, and people tell you you've done a great job, and you don't think you are. You have difficulty accepting praise. That is one way perfectionism shows up. But these behaviors drain energy and narrow possibilities. They don't actually perfect us because nobody's perfect. What they do and what perfectionism does is it limits our growth. Let me give you an example. You see, an illustrator who's been invited to submit work to a gallery has that deal. You've been invited to submit work to a gallery. Mind you, that work does not go to the gallery unless it's done. But this illustrator that I'm telling you about spends months remaking a single illustration, convinced that it must be flawless to be accepted. Then the deadline passes and she doesn't submit. Later, she learns that the gallery accepted several emerging artists whose work was just candid and experimental. They were not perfect. But guess what they were? They were visible. They made themselves seen. So simply, this artist's perfectionism cost her. It cost her the chance to be seen and to grow. But why does perfectionism persist? It persists because it reinforces the social messages that we often receive. For example, that achievement equals worth. What we have is who we are. Therefore, if I'm not the best, I am not enough. But the reality is, you are just enough. The short-term payoff can feel real because you avoid criticism or you get praise. But the long-term cost is high. You have reduced creativity, you damage your relationships, and you have chronic stress. So let's just look at some, let's just come with me and let's explore some practical ways to ensure that you're not a perfectionist. You do not need to demolish high standards. You can transform perfectionism into healthy striving. So just try these practices that I'm going to put forth. Number one, define what it means to be good enough for each task that you're engaged in. Ask what outcome will be good enough. What actually matters to you? What actually matters to anyone who's evaluating you? Who will remember in 2 months if you made a mistake today? What will be sufficient to move you forward? Set a time or quality limit and stop. Reframe mistakes as data. A mistake that you make is actually information. It is data. It's not your identity. It's not who you are. So when a mistake happens, ask this question. What does this mistake teach me? Again, a mistake is information. So the mistake is teaching you a lesson. You can get something from that information. What does the mistake teach me? What's the next small experiment? How can I use the lesson of this mistake to make my next work better? Do not judge yourself. Replace that judgment with curiosity, with a desire to learn more about your work, about yourself. And use incremental exposure. Let's say you're writing something. Write a small draft. Share a clip with someone, or show a sketch with someone that you know will not be too critical of you, but will be honest with you. In other words, start small. Anything you're doing, start small and gradually increase exposure to the possibility of being imperfect. In other words, I'm saying don't strive for perfection. Strive for recognition of your imperfections so that you can work toward great ideals. Set process goals. Not only are goals that are based on the outcome of your work, but goals, assessments that are based on the process, on how you got there. I remember growing up, when I was growing up in Africa, my father would say, you see, it is the driver that got home safely and got you home safely. That is the best driver. It is how they got you home safely, right? They don't have to speed. They don't have to break speed limits. They just have to do the right thing to get you there. So the assessment should not just be on that outcome. Focus on the process. Because the process, if they are speeding so much and get into an accident, everybody could perish, right? So how did they get there? Was it with a level of responsibility? So you commit to actions, really. And in the end, you submit your consistency, how you got there. That is why I like, for example, scaffolding projects where one will get assessed at various levels, not waiting for the final outcome. And this is a big one that I'm going to advise you. Build a compassionate inner voice. So when you notice that you're criticizing yourself, perhaps unfairly, respond as you would to a friend. Replace the harsh comments with supportive prompts like, what will help you learn here? and seek feedback early from people that you trust. Feedback will reframe imperfection as a collaboration tool. Your partner that who may be anyone in your life that you trust, your collaborator, your friend, anybody, have them give you an honest feedback and do that early. Your spouse, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, anybody, have them give you feedback early on. Don't wait till the end before you say, okay, here, give me feedback. And finally, limit your comparisons with other people. Remember that you are traveling your own journey. Everybody's traveling their journey. So you do not need to be comparing yourself. So again, we are all imperfect, and be willing to live to your imperfection, accept your imperfections. And so if imperfection is causing you severe problems, because it can, you need to seek help. Seek help. One thing you can also do is set time limits and give a progress list instead of waiting for the outcome in the end. Perfectionism may promise safety. It may. In fact, it does promise safety. But in reality, what it delivers is limitation. So by shifting from fear to curiosity, which is what I'm asking you to do, and from identity to process, we reclaim energy for what matters. And in the final analysis, what matters is learning. What matters is creating. What matters is connecting. Start with one small experiment this week or in the coming week. Do something imperfect and notice what happens. So if this podcast episode resonated with you, I'll be happy to hear or read from you. You can email me at ruminationsb@gmail.com or ohiro.oni-eseleh@integrativeruminations.com. Thank you.